Waiting on me.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending another GoDaddy Pro webinar, or if this is your first one, welcome. We're glad to have you. I'm Angela with GoDaddy Pro, and I'm going to be your host today. I might join in the chat sometimes, so if you see GoDaddy in the chat, that's not some weird bot, it's just me. I probably won't participate a whole lot, but every once in a while, I'll call something out. We've also got Geoff Jewell and Ben Rubin today. They're going to be talking to you about VPS, and I'll let them tell you more about the topic when I introduce them here in a few minutes. How we're going to do this is we're going to have the presentation first, and then we're going to have a Q&A after. So at any point, just if you have a question, you can drop it in the Ask a Question section down there at the bottom of your screen. Sometimes these guys will answer questions, in between slides and stuff too. So it might not all wait till the end, but just go ahead and drop it there and we'll get to it. You can participate in chat as well. Feel free to talk to us and each other. And just anything you want, really. And then after we're done here, there's going to be a recording, and in a few days, we'll send out an email with a recap, and it'll also have the recording too. So before we get into all of that, we're going to do our traditional shameless plug. Share a website with us so we can see what we've got here. It can be your own website, something you're working on, just anything you have going on. Drop it in the chat so we can check it out. All right, we've got Philip here. Philip Levine again with sflwa.net. Hi, Philip. It's nice to see you here. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and start the introductions too, so we can get going with that. Normally, I have my co-pilot, Mike Chorba, here on screen, but I've got two other people with me today, so he's actually just going to be in the chat. You're going to see him as Chorba. He runs our GoDaddy Pro Twitter handle, so if you've interacted with that at all, that's him. He's behind all of it. He's going to be sharing some helpful links for you in the chat too, and just bringing up topics that might be interesting, or answering questions as well. So, give a shout out to Chorba if you see him, say hi. Then we've got, I forget, who is starting first? Ben, was that you or was that Geoff?
Geoff's going to go first.
Geoff's going to go first. So let's introduce Ben. Want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been with GoDaddy just about 3 years. My background prior to this is mostly retail management with a side hustle of web marketing and print media. My time at GoDaddy has been mostly on the phone supporting you, our pros, and our customers. And here for the last 4 months or so, I've been working with our channel manager team, helping make our products better and present content like this and engage with you guys.
Awesome. Geoff, you want to go ahead? I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. So my name is Jeffrey Jewell. I've been with GoDaddy for, it'll be 11 years this year. Spent a lot of that time, just like Ben, in the care roles, working with customers as either a guide or a supervisor. Most of that time was actually with our leadership team, both in our inbound departments and our hosting departments. And then about 2 years ago, I transitioned into a new role, which was a lot more focused around kind of internal marketing, and it's kind of evolved into what is now a product or project management type role. And that's what I do now. I work directly with our advanced hosting products. So that would be our business hosting, our VPS dedicated and reseller hosting platforms. And today we're going to talk about one of those products. We're going to talk about managing your VPS with cPanel as well as WHM. So a lot of customers that transition away from shared hosting might have experience with cPanel, but maybe don't know kind of all of what cPanel is capable of doing, as well as the relationship cPanel has with its partner program or partner application, WHM. So we wanted to chat with you guys about that. Because it does offer a lot more control when it comes to managing your server using WHM and cPanel on a VPS versus a shared hosting platform. So the question that we had for y'all was, how much control do you feel that you have with your current hosting platform? Are you able to do the things that you want to do? Do you have the ability to modify the different modules and languages on your hosting account that you want? If not, or maybe if you need something a little bit more powerful to either run more complicated websites or applications, or maybe even just want more control over who is actually on your server, then the VPS might be the route for you to go, which we talked about last week. But VPS with cPanel and WHM is going to be a really great option for you. We're going to show you some of those reasons why. So today what we're going to talk about is basically 5 things: why choose cPanel and also WHM. We're going to walk through kind of what it looks like to set up your server for the first time, as well as get your first cPanel account set up on your VPS 4. And then we're also going to show you a little bit about navigating WHM and what are some of the key functionalities built into WHM that you would see most benefit from, as well as managing products and plans and managing clients and accounts. So any questions as we're kind of going through? Take that.
Cool. Feel free to drop any questions in chat or anything like that. And what we'll do is I think we'll collect throughout and then hit our Q&A session. So don't feel like you need to hang on to it till the end. Leave them in there. We'll track them, log them, and then we can get that feedback. First, we probably just need to get some definitions out of the way, right? So what is WHM and what is cPanel? So WHM is going to be our web host manager. It's a web-based tool for server. See in all the movies, there's a whole bunch of code and text and commands flying across a screen, a la Matrix or a la any of the number of hacker movies and things like that. That means something to a small group of people, but there's a much friendlier way of interacting with it and doing so through a graphical interface. So that's what Web Host Manager does for us. Allows us to go ahead and create additional cPanel accounts. We're able to go ahead and manage our SSL certificates, able to manage cPanel users, create hosting packages that are unique and defined specifically for a particular customer or a particular project or application. We can also do custom DNS zone files. So we know that at least at GoDaddy, we have an amazing domain control center where we're able to do all sorts of fancy stuff with our domain DNS. But some customers want to go ahead or some clients even require it, where we custom name servers, and they might be self-supported, or be able to do things like reverse DNS or any of a number of fancy non-standard things. WHM gives us an amazing opportunity to do so. It also allows us to manage our FTP, mail, SQL, SSH services on the server. So most are already familiar with what it is to operate within a shared hosting environment, which means that you're sharing that space with me. Is that call me, I won't be able to restart your server. I won't be able to restart SSH services for you because it impacts the overall spectrum of everyone that's hosted in that shared environment. With a VPS with a VPS server, now we can do that. Now you can manage your individual services that might be overwhelmed or overloaded, or might have rogue processes that are eating up resources or causing some sort of performance de-enhancement, which may or may not be a word. So we talked a little bit about the difficulty of doing it the hard way. And it's not called the hard way just because someone decided it was going to be so. It means that what we see here on the screenshot here on the left-hand side is what it takes to actually start configuring SQL Server on a server. That obviously requires a great deal of education, a whole lot of upkeep and maintenance, and a level of familiarity that most of us don't have. So that's where WHM comes into play. WHM is going to give us a simple control panel style environment to start managing and tweaking these individual variables in potentially a safer way, but certainly a more comfortable way as well. Jeff, if you want to go ahead and walk through a little bit of our VPS 4 setup process.
Absolutely. So basically, when you're getting started with your VPS 4 using cPanel for the first time, you're going to go through a couple steps. The first thing is purchasing and provisioning the server. Don't be alarmed if you purchase the server and it takes a little bit of time. There is a verification process required before the server is able to be messed with inside of the account. But once it's in there, setting it up is actually a pretty simple process. You're really just going to enter in the name of your server. You're going to choose whether or not you want the control panel option. In this case, it would be cPanel. And then you're going to choose any applicable data centers you have available to you based on your region and purchase. And you're going to click go and get you set up. And then after it's ready to go, it takes about, I think we say about 5 minutes for provisioning, but it can be anywhere from 5 to 60 minutes, depending on how backed up we are and how many customers we have. getting their server set up and ready to go for the first time. Once you're ready, going inside of WHM, we'll show you what that dashboard looks like a little bit later on. But to get to something similar to what you would see on like our shared hosting environment, you're going to go in and create a cPanel account. And going in and creating a cPanel account is as simple as clicking Add cPanel inside of the WHM menu, and then from there you're going to fill in the individual settings you would like you were almost setting up your hosting account for the first time on a shared environment. You're going to put your domain name in, you're going to fill in any other ancillary information that's needed there. I think it asks for an email address. The screenshot is kind of small there, so you may not be able to see it. It's going to ask for a username, password, things like that. And then once you're all ready to go, you basically click and you're able to start customizing your cPanel to your desire. Things like modifying the PHP versions, or other settings that are within there that we'll dive into a little bit later on in the presentation. But it's kind of intimidating the first time you get in there, especially if you're more comfortable with the shared hosting environment like I spent most of my time at GoDaddy utilizing. But once you get past the intimidation factor of WHM and kind of the overwhelmingness of what that dashboard looks like, it's actually super seamless, and getting around where you need to find the settings and the functionality that you need becomes actually a pretty seamless process. Anything you want to add to that?
So I think the reason that I wanted to highlight kind of what these steps were here, Jeff is absolutely right. Once you get into WHM, you are presented hundreds of options in a menu and then several dozen icons. And it can be like sitting down in the space shuttle and having to figure out, or you feel like you have to figure out how to make this thing go. It doesn't have to feel that way though. We've extracted out of WHM a great deal of the most important service functions and buttons and embedded them into our own control panel, which is what you interact with first before you get into that WHM. So when we talk about provisioning in minutes and getting up and running in minutes, it truly is that easy. It's set it up. Whatever, 5, 8, 10 minutes later, we're sitting on a page that's asking us, hey, do you want to create a cPanel? Say yes, username, password, email address. About 45 seconds later, you have a cPanel up and running. You may already have your DNS pointing to it. So we're talking a total of what, 19 minutes? We're up, running, and we have full control of our server with the control panel to go ahead and manage through it as well.
The really cool thing about once you get cPanel set up on your WHM account inside of your server, aesthetically speaking, the difference between our shared hosting offering with cPanel and our shared host or our cPanel offering on side of the VPS is identical. If you're comfortable with navigating cPanel on shared hosting with GoDaddy, or really most of the other providers out there that offer shared cPanel, you're actually going to be just the same inside of the WHM once you get into the actual cPanel layer of the account.
It's a good point. It's actually something it's a decision we made last year, was to move away from customizing the experience to be very GoDaddy centric to being more cPanel forward. So that way we can, relate to a lot of documentation that might exist out there or an end user's previous experience. So we talked about what it looks like inside of WHM. This is the easy mode, so to speak. So we're going to see a lot less icons than I may have previously suggested. These are going to be the ones that are used most frequently. Also, the ones that are more about the overall functionality or the getting up and running or the day-to-day usage, as opposed to the more granular, nitty-gritty, what happens every 37 days at 11:45 p.m. kind of thing. So we've got the icons on the right-hand side, which allow us to get into our most commonly used tasks. And on the left-hand side, we've got a list of all of the different services and features inside of WHM where we're managing that server from a high level. But we also have that search box on the very top. So if I know that all I need to do today is edit my zone files, I'm going to type zone up in that very top. Takes me right to it. I don't have to go through, know the order of all the services in here, hope that they're in alphabetical order. Looks like they might be. And have to sort through it. Other things that might happen through here are going to be, we can do all of our service management. We could do Easy Apache is a cPanel feature that allows us to easily update our platform software. That's going to be our PHPs, our pair versions, our modules, various security apparatuses, things like that.
Now, can we go back just real quick, Ben? I wanted to highlight a couple other things. So at the top right-hand corner is where you would see any kind of updates or options available for updating your current versions of WHM. So you'll see usually a banner. I think that actually has a yellow banner right up there that gives you the option upgrade if an upgrade is available. Rather not upgrade, update probably be a better terminology there. And a couple of things I wanted to call out here is WHM, much like cPanel, has the possibility of being, varied in terms of its appearance from company to company, depending on how they set it up. But for the most part, WHM should look pretty standard from company to company and provider to provider. You might see differences in the main page depending on the version of WHM that you're running. But for all intents and purposes, you're going to see relatively the same look. It should look like a couple of icons in the middle, and then that search navigation bar on the left-hand side. So, good to go. So the next thing we want to talk about is the control aspect. So usually you go to a VPS or a dedicated server, but in this case a VPS, because you want more control. Very seldomly are there a lot of reasons beyond that would necessitate moving off of a shared hosting platform into a VPS. Usually it's going to be some modicum of control that you're looking for that you don't get on your shared hosting platforms like the ones that GoDaddy offers or some that the other providers offer. So we want to review some of the tools and functions within WHM that give you that control, which would necessitate the reason to make that transition.
Yeah, and as we talk through these next couple of slides, keep in mind when we talk about control, we're not talking exclusively about being able to take ownership of various settings or being able to manage your individual clients in unique ways. Think about things about your maybe you have a special application that requires some sort of unique piece of software installed at a root level, or you need to run very old software because you've got a client who just won't get off the horse, or some analogy about catching up to something more common or more modern, and you need to be able to support something legacy. When you're working with any shared hosting provider, they have to be able to stay a little bit ahead of the curve, but they also have to take into consideration the impact that their clients have on the overall platform. So by going with VPS, you have the opportunity, you've got your own little carved out space. So you get to decide what you're running, and you're able to do it and manage it on your own terms. Not a bad first example. So we talk about SQL Server versions. GoDaddy, for example, on our shared cPanel, running MySQL version 5.6. We know 5.7 is out now. We know that a lot of developers have started to really take an affinity to MariaDB. Now in shared hosting, we know that those aren't options. You don't get that flexibility. You have what the provider provides you. But with a VPS, with WHM, and I guess to a lesser extent cPanel, you get to decide what your active SQL Server version is, able to downgrade, upgrade at your heart's content, and even transition between different, different platforms or different software providers in order to get those performance boosts or get the features that might come with a newer and later version.
Kind of similar story with your PHP version. So Easy Apache 4, which is part of the VPS 4 experience with WHM and cPanel, allows you to modify and install various versions of PHP depending on what you're trying to do. Ben, the perfect use case that Ben provided earlier was a customer that is running an older version of PHP or needs that older version of PHP that is no longer supported with a lot of providers. We're running into that right now with our shared hosting platform. We have some of our legacy platforms that only provide older versions of PHP, while customers now are needing the newer and newer versions of PHP. So while we have to kind of, as a hosting company, meet the needs of the masses for security and protection purposes, there are going to be customers who will have that use case. And having a VPS will allow you as a owner to kind of manage that for your clients or for your own individual sites. Like Ben said, to your heart's content, right? If you want to run PHP 5.4 on your VPS 4, it's not encouraged for you to do so, but if you're willing to take that risk and it's something that you need for your site and your business, then it's an option that's available to you. There are tons of different options that come readily pre-installed, but you can simply just select and install right out of the box, and you can also modify using other versions that you procure on your own. So there's a lot of flexibility with things like PHP and other languages in the VPS 4 platform.
And then we talked a little bit earlier about being able to manage the server and the various aspects and turn it off and on again whenever you want. From a support perspective, it sounds silly. We all saw it in the IT crowd. We all hear it when we call into a mobile provider or our internet service provider. Have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in? It's weirdly effective when it comes to technology. So fortunately with VPSs, especially those VPSs that have WHM, makes it incredibly easy to manage the individual services instead of having to tank the whole entire server and then have it all come back up. We can just restart our DNS service, or we can just restart, our SQL server to clear out any loose connections, or rather latent connections that might be either overwhelming the database or causing some sort of query drainage or drag, thus delivering a negative customer experience to your clients and your clients' clients. Other services that are a part of it, we've got Apache, obviously our web server. We've got XM, that's going to be our mail server. Restarting that helps clear out that mail queue if you're running mailboxes off the server. We talked about SQL already. PHP, help clear out PHP processes that might be related to a bad or broken plugin or a poorly written script that might, be drawing resources, whether it's CPU or query time with the database, things like that. So it's nice to have that minute and very piece by piece control over our server.
And then the next part is management. So a lot of times what you'll be doing with a VPS is typically not just having a VPS for just your simple site or maybe even sites for you and your family. You may also be using a VPS to manage and host sites for clients. And that is a very big part of the VPS community, is utilizing it for either client services or even going as far as being a full-on reseller. We're going to talk about some of those things here in terms of how you can manage your clients, how you can manage their sites and help them even automate a lot of those processes for you using some of the options that are built in and available, as well as additional add-ons. So whether you're hosting those sites for yourself or clients, WHM does give you that flexibility to manage it and control it the way you want to.
So this is what it looks like when we're creating a new, cPanel package. Now, what this is allowing us to do is I can create, like if I build the same basic WordPress site for most of my clients, I got a package, it's $800. That's not a real number, $800. And I know that they need 250 megabytes of storage. They don't need mailboxes. They need an add-on domain or a subdomain in order to facilitate, an additional language. Maybe they need shell access. Maybe they don't. I can create customizable packages that I could just provision as one-offs every single time I add a client into my database. So I hire on a new client. We go through our consultation. We've got pen on paper, and I can go ahead and spin up a cPanel that fits the specs of that project specific for them. Similar to the way that we will provision shared cPanel accounts, right? So our deluxe shared hosting has X, Y, and Z parameters to it. And we do that by having packages. And so it makes it really easy to kind of define, all right, cool, I've got X amount of resources as a whole. I'm going to need to divvy it out in such and such a way. And it allows you to do so in a very not manual, just very tailored way. And really just truly delivers on a good quality experience for you, the user. Other big things that are going to be inside of WHM, or maybe more specifically, part of your WHM and cPanel experience with a VPS. So we've got the cPanel transfer tool. Now, those of you that attended last week's webinar may kind of be familiar with this already. One of the coolest things about WHM is, right, so cPanel being such a large platform, being available through so many different providers, through so many different, you can run it yourself, for $24 or whatever, you can throw it on a server in your basement. But it's not stuck there. If you move on, if you fire your previous web hosting company, if you decide to consolidate to another hosting company, whatever that scenario might be, WHM takes that into account, and they've got an easy 4-click cPanel import process, driven by domain or IP address, username, password. And as long as you have root credentials, it's able to go grab that existing cPanel plus all of its necessary configuration, bring it with it, and import it into your VPS. And then with a few final kind of resting measures, it settles right in, and now you're running it from within your VPS. And we talk about multi-PHP. Multi-PHP allows us to do is, again, we talk about our breadth of clients. We have 5 clients, and we have a little bit of older clients as far as like the content, legacy content. And we have some other clients that we're developing that are on the bleeding edge, that always need to have the latest and greatest version of PHP or significant PHP resources or whatever that case might be. With multi-PHP, we can now manage our PHP settings on a site-by-site basis or on a cPanel by cPanel basis. Now, some of the more technical attendees might be familiar with doing that through a user PHP initialization file, where we go old text editor and we throw half a dozen hard to read lines in there and then manually manage that. But again, we want to talk about how easy it is to do this kind of stuff with cPanel. And then cPanel is extensible as well. So cPanel has tons and tons and tons, dozens and dozens of partners that build additional functionality that might not be a part of the default core cPanel image. And some of those might be like Apache Solr, which is going to be an indexing software for our data-heavy projects. ClamAV, which is antivirus software for our hosting platform. WHMCS, which we could do a whole another masterclass on about what WHMCS does, but I think Geoff will have a slide here very shortly to discuss that. But the cool thing is like you have your blank slate, and then you have all this portable extensibility, very much in the way that we like to do it with our favorite CMSs.
So, and we highlighted the ability to expand WHM and cPanel, and one of those things that we highlighted, one of those plugins was WHMCS. So earlier we went over how, as a potential reseller, or maybe just somebody working with clients, might utilize cPanel and WHM to create different packages and create different cPanel instances for a customer based on their specific, a client based on their specific needs or the specific parameters, or even just trying to ensure that one customer isn't abusing the amount of space that they're being provided. And WHMCS kind of works in conjunction with that to help you manage, organize, and bill the clients that are under your reseller banner, or just maybe clients that you work with on a regular basis who buy hosting from you, and allow you to take a lot of that kind of day-to-day stuff off your plate. So you go to GoDaddy today, you want to buy a domain and hosting. We walk you through a manual or an automated checkout process that pretty much allows you to purchase everything right through our website, and then you can get going right away without ever needing us. And WHMCS helps to create a very similar experience for the clients of the VPS owner. So essentially, automate recurring billing, invoicing clients. It also allows you to create a landing page that will allow you not only purchase the hosting from clients to purchase the hosting from you, but also purchase other things like domains, as well as other products that are available as additional add-ons within WHMCS. There's also even a client support system built right into it that goes directly to WHMCS, which is super helpful. So a lot of that day-to-day stuff that you might experience as somebody working with clients who buy hosting from you or maybe host their websites with you can be automated through the WHMCS system. And it's really easy to add that onto to your cPanel account right through, or WHM account through the plugin system. So.
Q and or A.
I think we probably could have stuck the landing on the end of the presentation a little bit more, but now is your opportunity to ask us any questions that you have. We did go through that very quickly, obviously, and we didn't go incredibly in-depth anything, as you could probably tell. WHM and cPanel have a ton of stuff about them that could easily take up hours and hours of us to go through. So if you have questions, we'll happily do our best to answer them for you.
Yeah, guys, I think we have a few questions in the questions and answers here, and I'll read those off for you if you want.
Sure. Cool. And I'm just going to drop the slide so I can follow along in chat as well, if that's okay.
Makes sense.
I can see all
so very first one, how do we get a sweet office set up like Geoff?
Well, you start your life out as a nerdy kid who likes things that nobody else likes, and then you get adult money with an adult job, and then you are fortunate enough to meet somebody who lets you spend some of that money on that stuff. So that's how you do it.
I may or may not have teased a boy who liked Power Rangers in 4th grade.
Hey,
he turned into a Jeff, and we're sorry for that.
Not me, but that guy might be sitting in Iowa somewhere with a very similar setup behind here. So
He might be. We've got a general how's it going from Malcolm Medley. You guys, how's it going?
It's going well.
It's going okay. I'm coming back from 10 weeks off, so this is my second full week. I spent some time. I just had a daughter in January, so 10 weeks away from work sounds like it's a really refreshing thing, and in a lot of ways it is, but it's like overwhelming coming back. So I'm still adjusting and having to bug Ben quite a bit to get me caught up to speed on some of the stuff. So, but his magnificent beard and his candor has helped me greatly get caught back up, and I have a great team of people to support me getting caught back up. So. Thank you, Jason. How are you, Ben?
I'm good. I'm good. I am good. These are a lot of fun, and like being able to collaborate with with my friends and colleagues on something that I think is really important. I think that there's a huge opportunity for our pros to take advantage of the benefits here, and you don't always get to have that conversation on the phones. And this is a really cool opportunity to be able to get in front of everyone. So I know it sounds corny, almost like I'm playing to the audience or anything, but it's not something I've ever been able to do before. And I'm really fortunate to have, been invited to do these. So that's cool.
Yeah. For this being my first time doing one of these, I think it's really cool to be able to talk to customers, talk to clients. I saw Web Cammy come up into the chat. That was really cool. I've met Web Cammy in person, and she's super fantastic customer. Gives us great feedback. Hi. So this is a really cool experience. Like, I spent a lot of my time at GoDaddy growing up in the care world, and you talk to a lot of customers, but you don't necessarily get to do things like this all the time. And so I think I'm really grateful, like Ben just said, to be able to have a conversation like this with you folks, and show you maybe something that you wouldn't get from a 15 or 20-minute conversation with a care guide. So.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for those of us who actually enjoyed talking to customers on the phone and don't really get to do so much of that anymore. We miss you. I'm going to go ahead and take a break from the presentation questions really quick to address Jason Nickerson in chat. Crowdcast is a pretty good platform. I do enjoy using it, but I will tell you that we are looking at Zoom. So I would say it's a good platform if you're a smaller operation, you don't have to share it with a lot of people, and you just want to, put some webinars out there, quick and easy. Yeah, it's a good platform for that. So I figured I'd answer that one since I use Crowdcast more than you two.
And even just in these two presentations, what I will say is I like it as an environment. Like, I like this layout. I like these vertical side-by-side bars. I imagine that's how you all see us right now. I like the aesthetic of it, and I like what it is for this purpose. I mean, Zoom, we use Zoom. God, I had 9 meetings before this one, and I've got another 4 after it. So, we're familiar. We're very well aware of it. I definitely get, and I noticed that Jason said he uses Zoom as well. Like, from a webinar perspective, there's some pretty cool tools that are available for Zoom. Just God help me if somebody tells me it uses that go faster button or that go slower button during a Zoom webinar. If you guys aren't familiar with it, find a way to disable it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out as we take a look at it. We do have a question from Andy. What are some good resources for learning WHM in depth?
So I'll field this part of this, and then Ben, you can jump in if you have anything. We actually recently started creating some customer-facing video content that can be found at videos.godaddy.com. The library that's there is not insanely in depth. I would argue that what is there is very much for the beginning user. But we walk through several different topics on the videos that are there. If you go to videos.godaddy.com, click on hosting, you'll have to click show more at the bottom to kind of get all the videos to load. But we've done videos covering things like getting your server set up with cPanel for the first time using WHM. adding additional cPanel accounts, things like modifying your PHP version. A lot of things we actually discussed here in this training, we actually show you how to do in those videos. So I wouldn't say it's as much like an in-depth analysis or explanation as much as it is a series of small walkthroughs. We try to do our best to go super quick with them and only go the length of absolutely the necessity, because we know that like there's a lot of media we get kind of put into our faces in 2020, and like not everybody wants to be in front of a screen. Sometimes they want to be in front of a screen doing, not just watching. So we try to keep them super simple. A lot of the content was created by our guides internally, but there's also a ton of stuff out there online for both cPanel and other platforms like Plesk. YouTube, I'm a YouTube junkie. I not only go to YouTube just to kind of veg out and watch videos and like get all my political stuff out of the way, but I also go there for cPanel has its own YouTube channel, and it has a ton of stuff. So if you're looking to go beyond the kind of content that we offer, then cPanel will be your best choice. cPanel's YouTube page, and then going directly to cPanel themselves, they've got a ton of content on their help resources, probably overwhelmingly so, which is why one of the reasons why I think we went to creating our own videos and referencing to the YouTube videos. But if you want to go directly to the source, cPanel's got pretty much anything you would ever need to know right there on their site.
And a couple of great options were posted in chat, right? So we see Andy posted up the YouTube link. We see university.cpanel.net as well. So cPanel developed their own training curriculum that they roll out in a course-led manner. If it's of interest to you, they actually also have a competition aspect to it as well. Not proud of it. GoDaddy's in second place. But when you enroll in it, you can enroll in a team. And it's something that, so for our advanced guides, the ones that we have taking our second level transfer support or maybe ticket fulfillment, we have an expectation that they pass through at least the 100 levels from there. And then when you get further beyond that, it's primarily video led. It is at your own pace. There's companion materials for downloading or printing. And then one final thing has completely slipped my mind. The forums. So that's one of the big advantages of working with a platform that is so large, or certainly as large as cPanel is. Someone's had the problem or had the experience before you. You're not the first one. And their forums are incredibly supportive, and there's so much collaborative information in there. It is oftentimes the faster solution for me to post in a cPanel forum when I have a question or concern than it is for me to go reach out to one of our SMEs. And because you get to talk to them on a real human level and go through, learn from their experience as well.
Yeah, I would argue that
the same question that Cami had. So Cami, if that answers your question as well, let us know in the chat if you're there. All right, Jeff, you go ahead.
I was just going to kind of tack onto that and say I would argue that while not as ubiquitous as WordPress would be a good analogy for that. Like, WordPress is so vast and there's so much you can do with it that there's almost too much to be able to like explain or teach somebody. And a lot of it is like Justin and Candy can probably speak to this. Like if you can dream it in WordPress, you can probably do it. And there's a lot of that kind of same idea in cPanel. There's so much functionality. It's very much possible to do what you want. And if you need to know how to do it, a quick Google search is almost always your direct path, either the forums or someplace else that will provide you the answer to that question.
Awesome. Just to build on that, someone just said, you mentioned the WHM UI being a bit too much for new users, and that you simplified things in the GoDaddy account UI. What did you guys do to make it more approachable for new users? I figured that kind of builds on the education aspect a little bit for new people.
For sure. So the idea behind HUI, or a hosting user interface, is I don't need to go in. I don't need to lift the hood and get into the engine to solve my problems or to work with it, to set things up or work with things. So we're bringing the core functionality, so the cPanel creation, the credential management, service management, monitoring, usage, things like that. We're bringing that out of WHM and building that into HUI. So that way, when I'm in my GoDaddy account and I click on manage for my server, I'm not going into that deep, dark closet that, isn't very inviting. I'm presented with a dashboard that gives me a more simplified overview. But we're never taking anything away, right? So WHM and cPanel are always there in the background, and then we're bringing the most commonly clicked things out.
Yes, Andy is correct. We call it Huey, like Huey Lewis in the news. I don't know why that was the first one I went to, but it's hosting user interface. So not a duck or a 80s new wave artist.
But it's always a duck.
I mean, sometimes it's a duck. I mean, let's be real.
We've got, how can I migrate my clients from an old server to a new server using WHM? And that was answered in the presentation. I think it was the cPanel transfer tool. Am I remembering that right?
That is correct. cPanel transfer tool does require that you have root access on the source. So if you are working with a shared hosting provider, whether it's us, Bluehost, any of the EIG properties, SiteGround's old platforms, anything like that, if you don't have root access, you will have to do a manual backup and a manual import. But if you're coming from another server or from a provider that gave you root, that cPanel transfer tool is legit.
Sweet. Did we go over how clients access their individual cPanel accounts? We have a question on that from Neely.
It's a good question. Domain/cPanel is your entryway to a cPanel login. Every client who's set up with a cPanel is going to have one. They can also do, enter their IP address in /cPanel. But when you create a cPanel, you're assigning a username and password. We notice the first two fields in creating a cPanel. So they all have their own single door. You're running your hotel. What do we say? It's a condo. You've got your condo, and you've got keys for everyone for each of their condos. So that way, they're able to all exist within the same server, but nobody touches each other, and they're all separated and safe. Notice Purvis says he uses Bing, so he does not like finding the answers to his questions. He likes to make it as simple as possible.
Bing is the social distancing of the internet, I think.
It's when you have 5 minutes to kill.
We've also got, what are some use cases that would determine the need for a dedicated server as opposed to a VPS?
So I think that's going to vary depending on where you're looking at getting your data or your VPS from, because I think that it might vary from company to company depending on how they have their systems broke down. With GoDaddy, we have essentially our VPSs and our DEDs are separated more so by the amount of power that you get with them. Our VPS 4 actually is equipped with a newer virtualization technology that isolates cores to the individual purchaser of the VPS. So you're getting dedicated cores. So it's also kind of like a dedicated server in that sense. For a lot of our clients, if a customer was to call and talk to somebody today, I would focus more upon, do you need more RAM and more CPU than what our VPS platform offers? If so, then step you up to our dedicated server. In the case of our current dedicated platform, DED 4, which has not launched in the US yet, should be probably in the next couple of months, it is what we call bare metal. So you are the only person on that box, and there are benefits to that. Ben, I think, can speak to those a little bit more, but a lot of times a customer who absolutely needs to ensure they have total and full complete control over their box and have no sharing of that box whatsoever would want to be on a dedicated platform with GoDaddy.
I don't really have anything to add to it. I mean, the benefit, really you look at it as the resources that are needed. I would encourage anyone who is thinking about going this direction into a server, into a self-managed server direction, start with VPS. It's very much one of those kind of things that can grow with you. And we've talked about the opportunities to migrate from one server to another. So start with your VPS. And we talked last week about how easy it is to upgrade from one tier to another or from one RAM set to another. And rather than move yourself into a mansion when you still have a family that's growing, move into a house that's sized right. Beyond that, the other major reason to pick DED is vast expansive storage capacity. Our DED 4s offer up to 8 terabytes, whereas with our VPS 4, fourth generation, we cap at 400 gigabytes. So if storage is what you need, that could be a determining factor. Yeah.
One other thing I might call out, since you mentioned storage, because this also plays into it, our VPS4s use SSDs, which is pretty popular right now, and that's what people tend to want to go with, even though it is a slightly more expensive option. Our dedicated servers do offer the option of standard disk hard drives as well as SSDs. And those SSDs are actually NVMe SSDs, so they're a tiny bit faster than not a tiny bit, I don't want to undersell it, but they are faster than the standard SSDs. So a lot of times it just comes down to what do you need it for, right? Are you going to be doing a lot of storage? If you need more storage, if you need more power, then tend to go over to something like a dedicated server. But in terms of functionality, what they can do, the basic bare bones of WHM and cPanel on VPS4 and WHM and cPanel on dedicated server, there isn't a lot of difference, if any at all, that would change between the two platforms.
Sweet. I think that's all our questions.
Cool.
All right, so something I would like to call out, now that we're done talking at you for a little while, we do actually have 33% off on the VPS right now. If you wanted to get started with VPS, kind of dig around with some of the things these guys were showing you a little bit earlier. If you want to try out the WHM, now would probably be a good time to do that. We have the 33% off. If you want to hit that button at the bottom of your screen, you can see what the offerings are for, the different VPS plans. And that discount is actually persistent. So it's not that you're necessarily going to be renewing for the same exact price, but you will renew at the same discount when you do renew this. So you'll keep that discount. A lot of our products, when you renew them, not only could the base price change, but you don't renew with a discount typically for that either. But the VPS is a little bit different in that we let you keep that discount. So you'll still get 33% off when you go back and renew it. Looks like Andy's got a link there for you as well.
When you get to that page, if it is something you're interested in, you'll notice that it shows our standard VPS, or what we call our self-managed VPS. You can choose a control panel option with that if you want to. If you want fully managed services, which we didn't go into today, but it is something we do offer at GoDaddy, there will be a link at the top or the bottom of the pricing chart where you can click to see our fully managed options. And that would basically give you a dedicated team that works 24/7 of GoDaddy employees who can help with upkeep and maintenance on the server anytime you need it. So great value if you're looking for the server experience, but want to also see what it's like to have a server administrator without paying $80,000 a year for one, because they are expensive.
Yeah, these guys actually talked about that in the last webinar last week, and Chorba shared a link to that in chat. If you missed it, go ahead and go back. You can watch that and find out a little bit more about the difference between the regular VPS and the fully managed VPS for that too. If you guys liked this webinar, or if you didn't like it at all, try to take a second, if you could, to fill out the poll that we have down here at the bottom, just general satisfaction rating. We use that to tell which webinars are doing well and which are not doing well, so we can bring you the content that you would actually like to see, and we're not just flying blind here. So I would definitely appreciate it if you took a moment to fill that out here as we're wrapping up. Anything else you guys would like to share with us? Blank stares.
No, VPSs have long had a history or reputation of being too hard to manage, and we've advanced beyond that. And GoDaddy has done a great job of simplifying that process and offering the support, to back behind it as well. So,
and I would even add to that, having been at GoDaddy for 11 years, I'll speak from experience. Dedicated and VPS servers were the scary thing, even when I worked in hosting, where they were far more common than in the inbound department. And a lot of it is just getting in there and messing around, right? Like, as I described earlier in the presentation, once you get past the first couple layers of WHM, cPanel is cPanel is cPanel in almost every instance, right? So at the actual base level of site management, you're not really changing your experience. And I think once you realize that, and you realize kind of how to navigate yourself through WHM and see all of the different options that you have available to you, it becomes far less intimidating. So I hate to say the cliche thing of just dive in and you'll swim, right? But dive in and you'll swim. You'll be fine. And if you break your server, you can always reconfigure it. So
Wise beyond your ears, my man.
You guys are going to be coming back next week for us, right?
Yep.
Talking about Plesk Obsidian.
We're talking about Plesk, the opposition to cPanel, ironically owned by the same company, I think, but they're so not really.
Yeah.
It's like when the WWF bought WCW and they pretended like they were still two different companies, but they're really just the same. So it's just like, what's your flavor? Any of my '90s wrestling geeks that might get that reference? That's incredibly dated, but
yeah, I got 10 minutes of Wikipedia after this.
Yeah, we had a couple Plesk fans in last week's webinar, so I'll be interested to see who shows up for that. I'm excited for it, especially when you were telling us about like what you could do with WordPress. So that's going to be like I'm a WordPress user.
exciting.
Cool.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and let you guys have a few minutes of your day back.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, bye everyone.